Hi, I'm Jeanette, the Northbound Coach. Welcome. Today, I want to continue our conversation around the issue of burnout. Last time, I talked about burnout in more general terms, what it feels like one major symptom of burnout being like, I just don't have the energy or the gumption to do this thing that used to be easy for me to do, or that just shouldn't be this hard. I cannot muster that together to get this done no matter what I do. And I linked the symptom back to one of the reasons why burnout appears in the first place, which is a lack of some boundaries for ourselves, that ironically shows up in the symptom itself, right? If I don't set the boundary for myself proactively, then it will, or I will, my subconscious set the boundary for myself in the symptom because I just don't have the energy to do the thing, and consequently there's some boundary around it. Of course, that's not the way we want to work things. So setting things up properly in the first place is the way to avoid burnout. And I know, easier said than done. So we want to talk more about the solutions to how to get to that, which brings me to today's topic, which is a particular burnout that is related to a very specific situation, and we will call this the micromanager. And if you are in this situation, it's likely what you're feeling is an intense amount of pressure to meet maybe even the shifting expectations of your manager or supervisor. It's a situation where, every I needs to be dotted, every T crossed. There's a lot of thinking and rethinking around, what you're bringing forward, and just a complete lack of control over the how of getting your work done. And it can, lead to a severe case of burnout rather quickly because, we don't want somebody else to be in the weeds of doing that work, of doing our work, right? We are professionals and we have the capabilities to do excellent work. And sadly, in a case of micromanagement, your confidence around your ability to do good work starts to slip too, because, what other conclusion can one come to if they're needing to be managed so closely in the output of the work, and when the output doesn't actually ever seem to be able to meet up to the expectations of the micromanager. So this can lead to the sense of just utter, this is futile. Like, I'm so tired and exhausted and spinning my wheels, spending, a lot of time in the worry and anxiety over, what can I do to meet my manager's needs? So it's really a terrible situation to be in. And what I want to talk about today is, well, if you find yourself in that situation, what can you do about it? And so the first thing is to get in front of the micromanagement as best you can. Now, no guarantees here, but the idea is try to get in front of your manager's need for information, to be involved in the details by setting a regular scheduled, maybe check-in conversation, maybe it's an email check-in, something that gets that information to your manager in a proactive way that meets your needs. That may help to slow things down and give you a little bit more space related to the micromanagement. The next thing that you can do is to set some professional boundaries. So here we are back at the same kind of concept that we talked about last week in the needing to set some boundaries. And this is an important step. So try to set some things around your work hours. So rather than, being available on Slack or, messaging, email, etc., 24/7, give yourself some time off, in outside of traditional work hours, outside, give yourself a rest over the weekend time, the times in your schedule that should be free of work time. Try to honor those boundaries for yourself so that you have a chance to regroup around these things and are not constantly thinking about them. Then the next thing that you can do is to, rather than keeping it to yourself, use some of your trusted network connections to talk about what's happening. Sometimes what happens with micromanagement is you start to believe that you're not capable, and that tends to lead to embarrassment around, well, I'm not capable to do my job. This is embarrassing. I don't want to let other people know that. No, in this case, reach out for support around what is happening, and you will find that you will get the affirmation that, in fact, you are capable. And that goes a long way in terms of steadying you. And it certainly sets you up to be in a better situation if, on this final tip, it turns out that you need to take this action, which is to determine it's time to go. So sometimes the situation is just not solvable. The manager and the approach that they take is supported by the organization, and there's not anything that you can really do to impact that. And then it means it is time to save yourself by thinking about what other alternatives there are in other positions in your organization, or an external move entirely. If this is you, I am so sorry that you are going through this. This is a tough one. I would be happy to spend, 45 minutes with you in a free career strategy session. If that would be useful, I'll drop the link in the description box. And we'll return next week with some more information on topics related to career that we all have in common in one way or another. So until then, have a good week, take care, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks for watching.